Hello and welcome to the Jacksonville History Show. I'm Emily Rutherford-Liska, Executive Director of the Jacksonville Historical Society, and this is the show that analyzes and celebrates local history. And do we have local history to celebrate tonight? There's a new book, and the book is called simply Stanton. Does it need more title? Well, it's the title of course, the oldest operating high school in Florida. Of course, this is a school that's been built several times, destroyed by fire, moved. It's been rearranged, reevaluated, and I have three authors of the book Stanton here to tell you all about the book. And later in the show, we'll talk about a new research center for Jacksonville history. But first, I want to welcome our guests and authors, Tiffany Green Galvin, and I'd like to also welcome you, Grace Galvin. I understand the real motivator behind this project, and Ron Galvin. And Grace and Ron are the parents of Tiffany, who's lived away from Jacksonville for a while. You've been up in Massachusetts, affiliated Professor University there, as I recall, and now you're moving back home soon. That's wonderful. We welcome you back to your hometown.
Thank you.
That I know you embrace, because here you and your parents have created this marvelous book under the encouragement of your mother, Grace. And let's start with Grace. Grace, your history with Stanton alone, this 100 and, correct me, 40-year-old institution.
Right.
Tell me your history with Stanton and why you wanted to write this book.
Well, about 8 years ago, the principal at that time was Jim Jackson, and he said, we're constantly getting people in here saying that, you know, this was their school, and all the medals and everything they'd won, you know, and the band's reputation. He said, I hear it. He said, so why don't we invite them back for a luncheon or something, get them back in here so they can still see it's their community school. And that's how it started.
And you're not only a graduate of Stanton, along with both Ron and Tiffany. No, Tiffany's not, but Ron is a graduate.
Right.
Both of you are graduates. Same year at Stanton, I recall.
That's correct.
I don't remember. What?
62.
62. So you're 62 graduate of Stanton. You're also on the faculty now at Stanton, or you were. You
Yes,
still are, aren't you?
Yes, for 12 years.
12 years. So you had real reason to be involved in this project. And so you decided to write this book. Was it a labor of love?
It was. It really was. And I guess with Tiffany's help, she wrote a proposal to Arcadia. Because I said, you know, each year when we have the luncheon, everyone brings back all these wonderful artifacts. It should be a way that we could, you know, put it in a book form. I said, I just hate to see it. We, you know, do it at the luncheon and then we're done.
And I'd like, and I'd like the book itself to be shown. And I don't know if they can zero in on this book. If not, we'll have, Tiffany, I'll tell you what, why don't you hold up the book? Oh, they've got it. They've got it on
nice.
the screen. And there's the book, The Stanton School, and or Stanton as it's called, because I know that was a little dilemma, because it's been known by many names. And Ron, talk about that a minute. All the names Stanton's been known by.
Well, it's been Stanton, Old Stanton, Stanton Vocational School, now Stanton College Preparatory School, but basically it's been the same title. It goes back to 1868, and it has a lot of rich history. And when you run into someone that's been to Stanton, it's a while before you get to the part of which Stanton. But it's, you know, it has a lot of people that's interested. A lot of people, as we were doing this project, we learned a lot from this project as well. There's originally, actually before the one that's now, there were 4 schools. So it's been 5 schools altogether. 2 are still standing. A lot of graduates all over the world from Stanton. And it's academia, has been academia, and as well as doing a lot of vocational studies for students. And a lot of people have gone on to be anywhere from professors to running businesses and athletes. It's just a lot of rich history there.
Well, Tiffany, I know you were instrumental in helping your parents with this. They've praised you many a time. let's start by showing a photograph of the man the school was named for. And why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about him and what he meant to the African American community in Jacksonville, because he wasn't a local guy. So.
Yeah, the school was named after General Edwin McMaster Stanton, and he was
Secretary of War.
Yeah. He was
Secretary of War under Abraham Lincoln.
Right.
And known as a big activist for that particular time, and with African American children in particular.
And he was. This is someone, and of course, what I didn't realize at the time until recent reading, I didn't realize he was the Secretary of the War Department, so Secretary of War under Abraham Lincoln, but all the freedmen's bureaus came under the War Department, which I think, Grace, you had researched with, and that is how a group of education activists, what were they called? They're called the Education Society?
Yes, and they went to Washington, and we have pictures of them also. And it's interesting because one of the daughters of one of the gentlemen passed last year, Mrs. Britt, Winona Britt, and her father was one of the ones that went to Washington to make the bid for a school in Jacksonville.
Isn't so? You had that sort of history still in recent years.
Yes.
Now, Tiffany's holding up a photograph of the very. Actually, is this the first or second Stanton school?
First.
This
That's
is the
the
first. So
first.
thank you for getting me straight. And of course, the first two schools burned. And so here's the first school dating back to 1868. And we were talking earlier, Tiffany, about a couple of the really important people that we are sure are in the crowd in this photograph. You want to mention that?
Right, in the crowd during this particular time was James Weldon Johnson, who was a student and then went on to become a principal, well, faculty and then principal of the school before becoming more famously noted for writing Lift Every Voice and Sing.
Yeah,
But
right.
he's in this picture with his brother and his mother, who was also a teacher at the school when he was a student. So we know they're in this crowd.
And it's kind of interesting, James Weldon Johnson, you know, arguably the most celebrated person to ever come out of Jacksonville, Florida. He would take this school into its years, develop it into a high school,
Right.
which certainly put on the map, I think, the first African-American high school in Florida, as a matter of fact, did not have one at the time. There are a few other really great stories in here, more than a few other. There are a lot of great stories in your book. Do you have a favorite, Grace?
Well, I think most people associate me with the band. And if you were a member of the band, it's something that's near and dear to your heart. And Colonel McFarland, he was the band director, and it's like, it just lives forever because he always maintained the band at a AA level. And so you'll see people right now, and they say, oh, we'll form a line. I said, oh, no, I don't think we need to form a line.
They still want to get in your old band configurations.
Yes.
Well, of course, Stanton School was known for its marching band.
Yes.
And this was a huge marching band.
Huge.
In fact, we have a photograph of the band right now. I think Tiffany does. And we can see and this band, of course, legendary. I know you won state awards, probably other awards.
And this is 1961. And I think each yearbook has a picture of the band in some configuration, but this was used quite a bit. And this is the same quadrangle that's out there now with umbrellas and what have you. And the kids say, where did the grass come from?
And a lot of people don't realize, of course, well, now wait, before we go any further, before I say what people don't realize, Grace, you were actually a majorette, and
Yes.
Ron, I want to know what your role was in the band.
I played alto saxophone.
Okay, so you were an alto sax player, which, you know, I think marching down the street while playing an alto sax, that has its challenges. It would have to.
Oh, yeah. We, one of the things is that this was in the 60s, but the band goes way back. And one of the interesting things about the band itself, although there's a lot of notoriety during that particular era when Mr. McFarland was the director, But the first band was started by J.P. Small, and he was actually he's probably more known for sports and of course being the coach there for many, many years, but he actually started the first band there way back in, quote, old Stanton during that time.
And of course now we have a ballpark named after J.P.
Exactly.
Small.
Yes.
And you've told me something about him I certainly didn't know. We have a photograph of J.P. Small available now. We'll get a look at that. And what amazes me, what Mr. Small clearly knew, it wasn't just important to have your young people involved in sports, get them involved in activities.
Right.
That's the healthy environment you
Right.
want to keep your youth in, lots of activities, and here is Mr. Small and the J.P. Small ballpark, which I'm sure you've been to,
yes.
which is just beautiful.
We performed in that ballpark many a Friday night. In fact, most of the games were played there except for the big game, which is played at the Gator Bowl. That's now Alltel Stadium on the Municipal Stadium. And that was every Thanksgiving evening.
And Grace, when you came here, you taught me something new, because as I said, I didn't realize that Stanton and Gilbert played right after the Lee Jackson game was over.
Right.
So the legendary Lee Jackson game had an even more legendary game following it, the Stanton Gilbert. And you told me if Stanton won, you ducked down in the bus so the Gilbert people you're a little nervous. But that does not sound unlike the Lee Jackson game, just so you know. Both legendary games in this city. I will have to ask, Tiffany, do you have a favorite part of the book?
Do I have a
Favorite part of this book? Or story from the book, or information from the book that you would just want the public to know? Because this book tells so much of this lengthy history of Stanton.
Well, my favorite thing is just how active the alumni still are. I mean, not coming from this particular area, I've always known about Stanton, and I've always been very impressed with the years of alumni that still gather and meet. I mean, we've talked about a couple of functions that are more major functions, but my parents have always been active and in touch with their class. There's photographs we have in the book of other alumni groups as far back as the 30s, that we're still gathering and meeting at, not just for the big year reunions, but just getting together. And so seeing that and having met different alumni from the school, I have grandparents that went there, so that was sort of neat for me to see old pictures. Like one was a yearbook that featured my grandmother. To catch pictures of other people I've met through the years and just see the history kind of coming alive, like, oh yeah, I know that person. And then, of course, whenever you point at someone, my parents can give me a nice big story about them as well. So, they're living, walking histories walking around. That's just great. And so I wanted to help Mom be able to capture that in some way, that was a little bit more tangible.
Now, Grace, is there anything in the book that's just your favorite, that you love being able to tell?
Well, it's interesting you should ask. We have a gentleman in here, Gordine. He was an outstanding athlete in the 1924 games, and one of his relatives came to town about 3 years ago, and he wanted the track field at Stanton, currently Stanton on 13th Street, named after his uncle, Gordine, who went on to become a lawyer, I think, in Boston, yes. But it's interesting, he graduated Old Stanton in 1916. He was the valedictorian.
The one on Ashley Street.
The one on Ashley
Still
Street,
standing.
right. And in 1924, he was at the Olympic Games. That shows him winning. That was his winning
Long
Long jump.
Did he, and he won the gold medal.
Yes, he won a gold medal.
It's just a wonderful story, and we probably would not be widely aware of this if it were not for you and your book. Now,
Well, what's interesting also is he went on to be quite active in a legal capacity in the state of Massachusetts, which is where I've been because of, he went on after service and then to also take on a formal judicial role in the state of Massachusetts as well.
He was a judge.
He was a judge, so there's a connection there.
Another
well.
very noted graduate from Stanton. Ron, what about you? What resonated with the book the most for you, the story you
Well,
wanted to tell?
I think that pointing out that from the beginning in the 1800s, where we as African American people had little to work with and all of the things that were not available, there's always been a line of academia. I mean, we excelled in other areas as well, but Stanton always has represented academia right on up to today. As you know, it is college preparatory school, and we as old Stantonites, or whatever you may want to call us, old Blue Devils, we always felt that we were a college preparatory school. And as we were doing the book and we were doing research, you can go back and see the line there of stressing, the school stressing academia, and that was very important, as well as giving students other avenues, vocational avenues. There was something to really give people a good base for a good career.
Well, there's no question the history of Stanton is it's so rich and so deep. And of course, for those, I can't imagine who in Jacksonville would not know, but of course Stanton College Prep is now over on 13th Street, so the west side. And this is a school that's been heralded nationally for its many achieving students and many achieving programs. But we still have with us the wonderful National Register site, Stanton School on Ashley Street.
Yes.
So we do have both of those buildings that exist today. And because of you, wonderful photos in your book of Stanton schools, the many different buildings through the years. In fact, how many photos in this book?
I think it's about 5 of the actual schools.
You mean total photos?
And the total, yes.
Oh.
Yes, over 200.
Over 200 in the book.
photos.
And I'm going to tell people how they can get this book. They can get it a lot of ways. You can certainly just go online to your favorite book provider and get it that way. Local bookstores are now all keeping the Stanton book, or you can just ask for it. They will get it for you. Of course, the Jacksonville Historical Society would be glad to provide or sell copies of the Stanton book. And better still, without me interfering, the three of you, the Galvins, will offer a program at the Jacksonville Historical Society the evening of Thursday, September the 17th. And we invite the public. The program is open to all, and you will show many of your photographs on a large screen so everybody can see them in 10 by 10 feet size, so wonderful photographs, and tell the story, the history of Stanton and what it's meant to Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh, yes.
And people can also learn more about your program on the website, www.jackshistory.com. I thank you all for being here today.
Thank you.
Tiffany
No, thank you.
and Grace and Ron. Thank you for saving the history of Jacksonville, Florida in your wonderful new book, simply called and stated just perfectly, Stanton. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back, and we'll have Jerry Spinks, and we'll tell you about a new history center that might be online for Jacksonville, Florida.